Welcome and thank you for joining this webinar today, introducing you to Panda's data control. My name is Tony Roberts and I'm part of the technical pre-sales team here at Panda. So before we take a look at the data control console itself, it would probably be beneficial to have a quick recap of the situation out there, along with how and why data control is particularly relevant today. Firstly, what are the challenges being faced by businesses in regards to data protection and why we're having this session? So, data breaches have been increasing. We certainly see this when we think about ransomware over the last couple of years, and isn't isolated to just the SMB market. Many enterprise organizations have also been affected by these types of breaches, sometimes more than once. Now, this isn't something that is new either. The problem has been around for some time. And these issues can stem from a cyber event like a crypto, or from maybe a disgruntled employee. The fact is that data loss or theft does happen. Now, a topic that we are all probably very familiar with is the EU's new GDPR that comes into force May this year. This directive will affect all companies in Europe that process personal information of any kind. The rules are complex and the fines for non-compliance are fairly significant, up to 20 million euros or 4% of the annual global turnover. Now, this regulation in particular is creating a greater workload for systems and security departments, which may have insufficient resources to manage this change. Now, those responsible for organisations must wake up to the reality that privacy represents a significant risk and is an issue of great importance. It's never too late for companies to start preparing for this, though. Now, of course, nobody denies that privacy is extremely important, but the most important thing is the actions taken towards compliance. Resources assigned to privacy should already be adapting or doing so very soon to be able to face this challenge, because in addition to the fines for non-compliance, there is serious, highly negative consequences for companies that can critically affect their businesses. Those consequences outside of fines can additionally include negative publicity, damage to the company's reputation, loss of trust from the business and clients, the cost of internal resources, and the necessary corrective actions to remediate that problem. Any one of these points can damage a business's ability to operate. So how can we help with GDPR? There's Article 32 that establishes that companies must regularly verify and evaluate the effectiveness of the technical and administrative measures to guarantee the security of personal data during its processing and use. Article 33 deals with the way data breaches are reported. It establishes a maximum period of reporting the details, a period of time of how it happened, the records affected, and what type of data was involved. For this reason, companies need to have full visibility and control of where sensitive data is located, who's accessing it, and what is being done with that data as well. If not, you will not be able to comply with this and other articles in the regulation as well. Article 35 focuses on complete control over the risks with respect to the privacy of personal data. This article again insists on the need to know at all times where the personal data is and who accesses it and what they are doing with it. Article 39 sets out the obligations of the DPO, or the Data Protection Officer. Now, this DPO is an independent figure whose duty is to supervise, coordinate, and ensure awareness of companies' data protection policies. I'm sure you're all very aware of what GDPR entails, but I just want to cover off those couple of topics. So Panda Data Control is available to help businesses comply with these regulations and obtain insights into their estates that would otherwise struggle to have. Data control leverages the capabilities of the adaptive defense EDR technology. Now, if you're not already aware of what adaptive defense is, it is an approach to protecting against the unknown. This is part of our security product suite, where our traditional anti-malware product protects against what we already know is malicious. Adaptive defense protects you against the unknown. Think zero-day or targeted attacks. Now, with this technology working alongside each other, we can now identify, log, and monitor personally identifiable information identified in unstructured data located across your devices and accessible file storage locations from an endpoint's perspective. So what do I mean about unstructured data? What are we able to analyze here? So where a business has a structured set of data, for example, that in a database, this information is already typically indexed, searchable, and easily identified. Now, where data control steps in is being able to analyze the unstructured data, the variety of documents spread across all the file systems located in every organization. So how does it work? Well, by discovering and assessing the data found in the endpoints and feeding this metadata to the adaptive defense platform for analysis. This in turn feeds into the advanced visualization tool where you get full visibility of what's been identified on the endpoints. And when I go into the actual console itself, we'll be able to kind of understand this feed of information being provided into the AVT. So where are we able to identify this data? What is this unstructured data? So here, right-hand side, we've got a list of all the unstructured data that we're able to identify. So these are types of documents that typically are scattered around businesses, estates, which you've got no control over, let alone what's actually included within that data. Now, when we analyze this data, we're looking for PI, personally identifiable information. So using the algorithm built into our data control option, we can identify a range of different types of PI. So here we can see things like credit card numbers, names, addresses, national insurance numbers, postal codes, bank passport numbers, quite an extensive list. On top of that, in addition, we also are able to track the processes being used to access and manipulate this data. And presently, we support data control in 6, soon to be 7 countries, and more will be added in time. Obviously, each country has a different kind of format for data. A postal code here in the UK will be different to the way address might be formatted in a different country. So we are able to focus specifically and provide support to these countries presently, and more will be added in time. So as I mentioned earlier, data control requires it requires adaptive defense or adaptive defense 360 to be used. Now, we can transparently upgrade any client from endpoint protection or endpoint protection plus to adaptive defense, and then include the data control module. With this done, you just need to simply enable it within your consoles. So how do we do that in the legacy platform? It's very simple. You just go to settings, you locate your profile, you select it. Down the left-hand side, you'll see data control. You click on that, and then you can enable the data control analysis in there. Just click on OK, and it's saved, and then that change will be picked up by the endpoints, and that data will start getting harvested. Now, when we look at the new Ether platform, if you're not aware of what Ether is, we can set up a different session for that, which is basically our new platform for our endpoint security. Very similar approach. Go to settings, locate data control down the left-hand side, open up your profile, and again, enable it within the console. One of the nice things about Ether, and one of the reasons we moved this platform, is that any changes you make within the console are instantly picked up by the endpoints in real time. So once it's enabled, we have our endpoints now discovering PI in the unstructured data. So we're now locating this information in data at rest, which are files that are located in the file system that aren't being processed or accessed. Data in use, which is identifying files being opened, created, deleted, or copied. And data in motion. And this is referred to identifying the processes being used to access that data for risk of exfiltration, and placing all this data into the advanced visualization tool for you to access. So let's take a look at the console. So let me just bring up my screen here quickly. Okay, I've got my login details. Okay, so I'm just going to go into my Ether console. So when you've got data control or the advanced reporting tool, you get access to the advanced visualization tool located here. If it's in the legacy console, it'll appear as a button in the top right-hand corner. Now, if I click on this, this is going to take me into our mini theme, which is Security Information and Event Management Platform. This is big data analysis, big data event analysis. So when we log into the console, we can see that here, this is the dashboard view of the home screen, which is just showing us all the events that are being fed into this theme platform. If I just go to the left-hand side here, I'm just going to lock this screen so it doesn't keep on minimizing. Now, before I go into the data control widgets, I want to start off by actually showing you the data control event table. So up here, I have data search. Down the right-hand side here, these are all the event tables that we populate as part of advanced reporting as well, but we're just looking at data control. So I'm just going to select EDP and ops there. And this is going to show me the data control event table. There's a lot of data within here. Now, you notice at the top here, we've got from to timeline. So the logs in here can actually go back a year within the console. So you can query for activity against data going back a year. Now, when we look at the columns of information available, we can see the time and date of an event being logged. We can see the machine, the IP address, and the user. So we can see that this machine and user is associated this time and date with a particular event. We've got the exfiltration flags. This is talking about the processes that are potentially used in data breaching. We've got the operation being performed to open, creating, rename, delete. We can see the process that is being used in this instance. If I scroll across a bit further here, we can see the document path and the document name. So we're able to identify that this document was being opened by this process, by this user at that particular time. And obviously, we're talking about personally identifiable information here, the PI, not just any file in particular. So if I scroll further to the right here, we have our columns of PI. So if I expand a few of these quickly, and what we can see here is numerical values. Now, what these indicate is one instance of a credit card was discovered in this particular document. So we use now analysis to determine this type of PI data, the number of instances of that PI data identified in that particular file within the console. So what we're doing here is we're not restricting or having an ability to control what access is being done to the data. We're providing the admins, the sysadmins, the DPO, visibility of what is being accessed out there, by whom, when, the action that is being taken against that document, and the type of data that is included within there. Now, to be able to identify this data without this analysis would be near on impossible. How are you going to find out what data you've got out there in a client's estate that includes this PI data and what those users are doing with it? You can set restrictions in place for using hardware or maybe websites, web access control, but really having visibility and insight over the direct actions applied by users or processes over this data is what data control can do. So obviously at the moment, I'm looking in the event table. Now, if I go down to the side here, I have the section data search. And what we can find within here is these widgets. These are the preset widgets. And these are basically graphs and charts that are generated from all this data that we provide within the console. So if I go into files and machines with PI here, we have the general view. So this is a good example to start off with. So here I can see these machines have been deemed to have activity associated by users on them with PI. Now at the moment, the top view is showing me the machine name. You can see by the legend here, but I can manipulate this round. I can drag user to the beginning there. We're looking at the last week of activity here. I can change this, update this, and get a different data set appearing in the console. And I can see this user. If I double click on that, I can start drilling down. This user on this machine was opening, deleting, renaming, creating data on them. I can click on this again, go to create, and I can drill down within there. We'll come back to this in a second. At the moment, I'm just showing you the extensions, but I'll show you a way of actually seeing the documents in question behind the scene. Obviously, we've got other widgets available within the console. So I always usually refer to using the widgets as a good starting point to familiarising or getting quick access to data or PI that is being accessed from the endpoints and then filtering down through that information already being displayed. So data files for PI, underneath here we've got distribution of PI files by extension, so the type of data that's been identified and the types of file formats out there. If I go over to machines with PI, we've got top 10 machines with exfiltration options. Okay, so these are machines that are being identified with processes being used with potential exfiltration, data loss or data theft of PI data. Also, you've got machines with malware. So we're tracking malicious processes that are accessing PI. Now, when it comes down to reporting on a breach, if it's a cyber event, this is critical data that you need to be aware of. But obviously, on the flip side of that, using data control, you're using adaptive defense. And the whole purpose of our EDR technology is to stop malicious processes from running. But if you've got clients that are allowing unknowns to run, you've obviously got that peace of mind that that activity is being tracked and logged through the console. Over here, we've got processes accessing PI files. So again, we see malicious processes being flagged up. Along the top here, we've got just general top processes accessing PI files. So this is a good way of indicating what processes are being used to access PI data, like Google Drive, OneDrive, things that could be used in exfil operations, email applications, or typical office solutions. Obviously, when you see high instances, these could also be indicators of potential big data breaches, large volumes of data leaving the business. So this information is critical in order to understand and identify what's going on within an estate, and obviously take the appropriate measures within here. Should you be stopping certain applications from being used? Should users be able to access data in that particular location? Should people be able to use external media? It helps identify all these potential risks, and then the business then take the necessary steps in order to stop that from happening. So obviously these widgets are preset. You can obviously change the filters within here. If I go back to files and machines with PI, for this example here, these laptops that are being used to access PI data, if I want to see the information that's being displayed underneath here, you can do this in any of the widgets, but you can simply go up here, you can download the data if you want to take it offline, so you can get it all exported. If I click on those lines there though and go to query, what I basically see here is the queries that have been set against the data control table. So I showed the event table for data control early on. Now here we can see all the queries that have been applied to the data just to get it into a format that we can then generate graphs and charts off the back of. Now straight away, when I've clicked on that general view one there, I can now see all the files that are being accessed. So we could simply say, well, what is that particular user? Let's pick on a user quickly, click on the drop down box, click on user 5, filter that person out, and now I can see all the data that they've been accessing on that particular machine in that time frame that I've defined within here. If I want to update this information, I can change the time, update that, and that is reflected accordingly in the logs, which I can then in turn go up to here and download that information to take offline. So, but you don't have to stick with the static widgets in here and manipulate them. You can actually create your own filters as well. So if we go back to data search quickly, go back into my data control event table. You may have some particular reasons to create your own filters in here, which you're completely capable of doing. So maybe you want to pick on a particular user. So let's click on user 5 there. I just want to filter that person out. So I see all the activity for that particular user within there. And if I want, I can say, okay, this is this person using external media. So I'm just going to change the device type to removable there. just filter that. Okay, and I can see that. Now what I can then do is I can actually go off and save this as a favourite. I'm just going to save that in there quickly and mark as a favourite. And basically what that does, that search I've just defined there, I don't need to recreate that again, because now if I go to my home page, that search appears in the console, and that will stay in there. So the next time you log into the console, you may have already preset your own query. You could just simply click on that, and you see the data that's directly related to that query that you'd set within the console. Now, another thing that you can do with the data control is you can actually set up alerts. So by doing so, it's a similar approach. You can go into a console, you create a query, you're looking out for potential triggers of notification. So this could be when a user is using external media, or when a particular file or data location is being accessed, or if there's a large volume of data that's being exfilled. You can create the associated query and save it as an alert. So how you typically do that within the console is you'd set your query. So I've got this query set up here. I'm going to set that, leave that with removable. You go up to the top here and you click on New Alert Definition. All you do is give it a name. So data. And then here you can put in a description. So you can include things like the machine name, and we can also include the document name. Okay, so this is basically set up an alert definition. So when the next time this user is accessing Pi on external media, the system will be able to send you an email notification. In that notification, it include the machine name and the document name and any other variables that you want to include within there. So that comes across as an email notification when it gets detected and notified. All you then need to do is set up some categories down here. So I'm going to call this a potential exfil, so exfiltration, so potential data loss, and I'll give it another name, and I'll call it external media. It's a very basic one, but obviously you can get an idea of how complicated you can make them if you want to. External media, and just simply click on create, and that'll save that alert within the console. Now, when you configure alerts, you do need to set up how you're going to be notified as well. So under the administration section here, you've got alerts configuration, and you can then see the types of alerts you've got. So here I've got my alerts, I've got my exfil. If I click on that, and there is my external media alert that I can toggle on and off within here. Obviously, I want to define how I'm going to be notified about these alerts. So along the top here, you have delivery methods. So you've got a whole range of different options to use. I'm using email. You simply just click on new, put in your details, and click on save, and then that email is included within the notifications. And under alert policies, you define when your alerts are actually valid to be sent out. So this is a 24/7 policy that I always want to be informed, and this is the email that is going to be used when those notifications occur within the console. So you have data control that is being leveraged by our EDR technology and is feeding this data in the console, which is giving you insights that you would otherwise have no way of being able to determine what's going on out there within the estate. And when it comes down to compliance with the new regulations, or just general security for that matter, knowing what's going on within your estate with your data, data control helps massively in order to achieve that. And obviously, there's always a roadmap with our products, as I'm sure you're aware. There's always development for the future. So there's a couple of things that are going to be added in to this console in the coming months. Now, as you saw already, I've just gone back to the raw table here. First of all, this Pi data. Now, all we do at the moment is we identify the numerical, numerically how many instances of that type of data is included. In the next release, they're helping towards the right to forget. So if a company approaches your business and says, I want you to remove all instances or records of me within your organization, how can you identify where that person's name, account number, bank details exist within your data scattered across your estate? So what there'll be a new button or a search feature available within the console where you can type in someone's email address, and what will flag up is the number of files that have been identified to include that searchable field. So you'll be able to search for Pi data. We will never display the Pi data in the console. We never show those email addresses in here or bank card details, whatever it might be. But what you'll be able to do is, if you know what you're looking for, you'll be able to search for that, and we will show you the results of how many times that information is being identified in the files scanned throughout your file system. Additionally to that, we will also include the ability to include your own IP. So if you have yourselves or your clients have got, alphanumerical formats or a format of types of information they put into their documentation to help identify clients or records or whatever it might be, you can actually add that in as an additional Pi field. So you can actually be able to search on data that is just applicable to that business in question. So I just wanted to go through and give you an overview of data control with some background within there. Hopefully that's been very useful, and it's kind of giving you some insights as to what we're doing within our product and the roadmap for what's going on out there.